Roger for Haps News, the network of now. This morning we are talking about the bombshell report in the New York Times that finally revealed details about Donald Trump's tax returns after years of trying to figure out what was in them. The New York Times has details, and we will be going into it this morning on the AM Report. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the AM Report with Alex Mahajer. And of course, this morning we are talking about this bombshell in the New York Times yesterday that came out late yesterday that revealed details about Donald Trump's tax returns for the first time in years. Now, as you'll recall, the issue of his tax returns has been raised ever since the 2016 presidential campaign, when Hillary Clinton and others called on Donald Trump to reveal his tax returns. He's the only president in American history to have not released them per standard protocol. And this raised a lot of questions and speculation as to what was actually in them. We know there's been long legal battles about his tax returns. We know that the Congress was trying to obtain them in order to provide oversight over the president. We know that the Southern District of New York and the Manhattan District Attorney have been in legal battles over these tax returns. And finally, the New York Times seems to have obtained them. We know they've obtained them. They are not going to fully release the actual tax return right now, but as we understand it, there will be further reporting about what's in those tax returns. Now, the New York Times is saying that they're not going to release the tax returns themselves to protect the source from which they came, but also, I suspect, because they would like to report on the tax returns further, and because there is a great deal of scandal contained in them, the New York Times probably is trying to split up the reporting. But let's talk about what we already know in this first report from the New York Times. Now, basically, the general sum of this first report is that this issue of Donald Trump as being this populist billionaire tycoon is really just a sham and a fraud. Now, some of the first things that we learned in this tax return reporting from the New York Times is that Trump has paid no federal income tax in 10 of the last 15 years. We also know that he paid only $750 in income taxes in 2016, the year he ran for president, and 2017, the year he was inaugurated as president. We know that since 2010, he has claimed and received $72.9 million in income tax refunds. And we know that he claimed $70,000 in tax deductions for hair care. So that's sort of the top of the list. But really, there's the implication from these tax returns is actually that Donald Trump isn't the billionaire businessman mogul that he claimed to be. This looks like he's a dreadfully poor businessman, compulsive tax avoider, and he's been just absolutely destroyed by massive debts that really could expose him, the President of the United States, to conflicts of interest because of his position as power and the power to help undisclosed lenders. Now, in a press conference yesterday, Trump refused to talk about his tax returns, and he deferred to his usual tactics of calling the New York Times fake news. And the other details are very startling. So it looks like he's also writing off hundreds of thousands of dollars paying his daughter Ivanka as a consultant to the Trump organization, according to the Times report. It also shows that he's been using really his status as president to shore up his losing businesses. For example, his hotel in Washington, D.C., his multiple golf courses and resorts are all benefiting from his presidency. So this is particularly troubling, and it really does recall all the way back to 2016 when then Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton raised this issue in the debate. So there's a lot of people online who are very outraged about this, and we will talk a little bit more about some of the finer details of this report. But first, I'd like to cut to Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign talking about the reasons why Donald Trump would be failing to disclose his tax returns. And let's take a look at that. And there she is, former presidential candidate and I'll note the winner of the 2016 popular vote, Hillary Clinton, talking about why Donald Trump will not release his tax returns. So there's other troubling information in this report. We know that this is a man who purports to be a billionaire who's paying no taxes on hundreds of millions of dollars in income. And additionally, it appears that he's paying taxes to several foreign countries, much more in taxes to several foreign countries than he is to the United States government. So we know, based on this report, that there's been, it looks like, also $300 million in loans that the president is personally responsible for that are coming due over the next 4 years, which also sheds a lot of light on why the president seems so desperate to hold on to power. In the recent days, he has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, which is unprecedented and also one of the constitutional safeguards of American democracy, that presidents would commit to a peaceful transition of power. And without that, of course, we don't have a democracy, and his refusal to commit to that is very troubling. And this reporting about his tax returns really sheds a light on why he seems to be so desperate. He's got $300 million in loans. He's personally responsible for them. And it looks like during his next term, should he be legitimately reelected, although we'll note that Joe Biden is ahead in almost every poll, that these businesses, these lenders would have the decision to foreclose on the businesses owned by the president while he's currently is in office and he's unable to pay the money back. So he's also really deeply compromised, based on this report, of being able to execute his business dealings, which he has refused to divest from. As you'll recall, when he became president, he refused to divest from these businesses so as to avoid the constitutional conflicts that might arise. And for instance, the emoluments clause of the U.S. Constitution, which says that federal office holders can't benefit from or accept gifts or receive any kind of benefit from their office. So we know that, for instance, he is deriving millions of dollars in income from countries like Turkey and the Philippines they're led by dictators. And it really is troubling that he's paid more in income taxes to these foreign powers, including $145,000 to India and $156,000 to the Philippines in 2017. So this is really just a troubling report out of the New York Times. We will, of course, look forward to further reporting from the New York Times. Apparently there is more reporting to come out about this, and we are very interested in seeing with which foreign nations he has entanglements. And we know that he's obtained hundreds of millions of dollars in loans from foreign banks, including Deutsche Bank, that have connections with Russian oligarchs. And as this has been an issue that's been raised a lot, and this will be the first time that we are able to get a closer look at those entanglements, which should be also very important for the American people. So stay tuned. This has been the AM Report with Alex Mahajer for HAPS News, the network of now. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, please consider sponsoring it and buying me a cup of coffee. You can visit me at haps.tv/@AlexMahajer to follow me or to sponsor me. And we are live every weekday morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. We will be back tomorrow morning, and thanks for joining. Bye-bye, everybody.